Close your eyes.
And I'm very thankful.
I have a bill of sale for the slaves.
I have them.
Reload! You gotta hate what you're firing at!
I love LA. Might have been your last chance.
We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Assalamu alaikum.
I insist.
What did you say?
A man is supposed to take care of his family.
You gonna stay for supper?
You know any maids looking?
Thank you.
Makes me want a horse laugh.
You're becoming more human all the time.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Melissa.
Are you excited?
Yeah, ready to tell everybody my story.
I think we're all ready to listen. All right. Well, I will be formal with you, even though we're good friends, and I'm happy to be talking to you. So I'm very happy to be sitting here with Gina DeDomenico.
DeDomenico. We
DeDomenico.
got it. We got it close.
Almost. New last name, new life. And you are a costume concept artist.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I am a costume concept artist. I'm a digital artist, and what I do is I work on film and TV, conceptualizing with the designer what all the costumes are going to look like in the film, and it's always, or TV, and it's always for clothes that have to be made versus purchased, like superhero shows, or set in the future, set in the past, and they have to make them and make doubles and triples and stunt, doubles, and so it's not, my art is never for anything that is that can be purchased. So they need artists to communicate what costumes are going to look like.
And when you say make it, it's not necessarily exclusively making it on a sewing machine. There's some sculpting happening too, right?
Yes, yes. Most of it is sewing machines that the shows that I work on, and then certain pieces are have to be made by special effects, like all the armor and pieces that light up and stuff like that has to be done by special effects.
And so your designs communicate not just to the people who are sewing together the costumes, but also the special effects people, the people who have to put lights or tears or texture or anything else.
Exactly. So I work with a designer and we come up with what we think are the best, say, 5 ideas for the certain character. And after we come up with those, she gives it to the producer and the director or the showrunner, whoever she thinks is the next level of approvals. And it comes back to us with a couple choices. And then we move forward with those choices. Once we get to a final, which could take 2 weeks to 6 months, then that goes to the workroom. And so, and the dyers and special effects and everybody now, it's my drawings are a communication tool to get the costume made and ready to shoot, ready for set.
And you mentioned superheroes as some of the costumes that you design, and you have been working on some concept art for a little show called The Boys, right?
Yes, I'm the concept artist for The Boys, and I'm so proud. And that the first season was like 3 years ago, and so some illustrations that I'll be showing was work I did 3 years ago, and it's by the time you do all the work and it gets to screen, you forget like all the stories. But yeah, so I did The Boys first and second season.
And you did Queen Maeve.
Yes.
And so there's some different pieces to the process, right? You had the different sort of ideas about the costume that you would share back and forth. Tell us a little bit about the process for Queen Maeve.
Okay, so when I start on a character, the designer and I sit and we discuss who the character is. And someone has usually done all the research for us in the office, and we research, for example, for Queen Maeve, what she looked like in all the comics. We talked about how to transition to a real body from what's on her in the comics, how we want to update the costume if it needs updating. And what I do is, and then if there's a cast member, I'll put the cast member's face on the drawing. So when I start in all gray values, because it's easier to see good design if you just use grays, because color can be really distracting. So we start with rows of just concepts in all gray. And then we move on to sample colors. Once we hone down, now sometimes I'll do like 20 illustrations, 20, 30, 40 illustrations, and I'll just go and just keep using the inspiration that I've been given and understanding what the designer wants. And I'll create just rows of concepts that are just, each one is just a little different from the next, always referring to all the research material and what the track the designer wants to stay on. So sometimes I'll do, for Queen Maeve, I probably did 40. And then those 40, the designer I'm working for The Boys is Laura Jean Shannon. She's fabulous. And she would then take it down to 10. And then we go down to 5. And then usually in those final 5, we start then playing with color. Where does the color go? What color is appropriate for this character? They start researching fabrics, and then it goes to the producer and director, and we get it down again to the next level down. And so as the weeks go on, we hone it down to the final illustration.
How often does how the actor looks, how often does that influence the actual costume itself?
How the actor looks?
Yeah, in terms of hair color or, you know, maybe body type or anything like that.
Sometimes a concept will be done and then it's cast, and sometimes we have to redo the drawing a little bit because of the proportions of the actor. And we lose a lot of real estate sometimes. So like I'll have all sorts of seam lines between in the waistline, and if the actor ends up being like short-waisted, we have to redesign. Even though it's all been approved, we have to redesign what's going on between in that spot. So what happens is the actor will come in and we will put them in a bodysuit. And what I do is in the first fitting, I draw all the design lines on the bodysuit on the actor, and we can see, and we're using my drawing. So we've got my drawing up, and then the actor's in front of me, and I'm drawing on them, and we're trying to match up what I've created in the concept art to what's the real estate that's happening on their body. And in the first fitting process, we most of the time have to make design changes and then pray, you know, it's already been approved, but pray that it doesn't change really the way the design looks. And sometimes the actor will have parts of their body that they love and want to show, and that they absolutely want to hide, you know, or, you know, and so sometimes there's some design nudges around that too. But in the first fitting, it's the most fun, where they get into the bodysuit and we see like how this is all going to line up.
Did they kind of become the character a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, they get really excited. They get really excited. And as we move on in the fittings, like we've about one fitting a week, and then special effects start arriving with all the hard pieces and everything's molded and the diadems, and through each fitting we get closer and closer to the final, and then the actor gets super excited. We're looking here at, for example, my illustration is on the upper right, and the people who are molding Queen Maeve's corset are referring to the illustration and creating the mold, the mold for her corset. So like I said, the concept art is a language that everybody follows to get the costume made. And so as an artist, I really can't, I have rules. I have strict rules I have to follow. Like arms can never cross the front of the body. Like, so I'm creating art, but I'm creating art that really has to be clear. So I have to follow pose rules in terms of being able to see. Usually my poses aren't both open arms, because then you can't see the side of the arm. So I have to make sure that all the workrooms and special effects and everybody can see everything about the costume, all angles of the costume. And if I don't show it, I have to then draw a side view and a back view.
So it sounds to me like what you're saying is that you are doing a whole lot of drawing and a whole lot of revising over and over again to get the costumes.
Yes.
And
yes. How did you get? Yeah, like 6 months later, I'm revising a concept, you know, for a character. Yeah, it never stops. It doesn't stop. Even it. Yeah.
And you do
even
it all
in the
digital.
End, there's changes. All digital.
All digital, but you haven't always been all digital. You used to have to make all of those revisions on pen and paper, right?
Yes. You know, though, when there wasn't the kind of freedom we have now with digital art, like I can change a green costume to a blue costume in 2 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And in the old days, if the designer wanted to see a different color, it would take me at least a solid day to redraw the whole thing and change the color. right? I have to start with like redrawing likenesses. I was drawing like teeny little likenesses of actors perfectly. And then if the designer was like, I don't like red, I want to go blue.
Oh.
Okay, I'll have it in a day or two. And so I think in those days, we just got it right the first time, or wrong, you know. It was just like, it's red, we're gonna keep it red, you know.
What's that guy's favorite color? Is it blue?
Yeah.
Make it blue.
Yeah, we didn't make the changes we make now. It's really different. It's just and we also we weren't doing like superhero stuff like we're doing now, and all these incredible with special effects now. I mean, the freedom we have now is so much different in terms of the films that are being made and the visually what's going on with film and TV. But
so when you started and you were doing pen and paper and you were sort of focusing, you know, we didn't have this possibility about superheroes and all of the special effects we had back then. When you started your career, what were you using to communicate your designs?
I was using a light board and Bristol paper and gouache and pencils and markers. Yeah, and so when I go to work, I really prayed they would keep me for at least a week, because the unload and the setup was crazy. And it was, we're looking now at my one of my old jobs. This was Godzilla. Oh. And this is probably one of my last jobs in paper, using paper and a light board. But it was quite messy, and we couldn't email anything. And
how did you get the designs? You would send a messenger, a courier?
I'd go into the office and work with the designer. And so she would show me pieces of tear sheets. It was all tear sheets of ideas, and nothing digital at all, or nothing on email or anything like that. And then when we wanted to email, if we had to, we would have to take all these drawings, which were 11 by 17, and take them to Kinko's, and we'd have scans made, and the skin tone would always come out yellow, and the colors were all completely off all the time. So all my old artwork from those days, if I don't have the originals, I have scans and these ones aren't bad.
Yeah.
So
I can see Anthony Hopkins and looks like John Malkovich.
Yes, John Malkovich. Yes. Yeah. And these were painted on Bristol paper, and I must have gone to Kinko's and adjusted the color on these until the poor guy who works at Kinko's went crazy. And this one's the Hateful Eight, which is one of also the last shows I did with paint when I came back. It was hard. It was hard. You had one shot, and communicating the artwork through all the different departments the artwork had to be scanned and then emailed, and it was not an easy task. It just wasn't. And it wasn't. Just thinking about those days, just now that I have my Cintiq and it's all digital, I can't even believe. Feels like, you know, when we were driving cars, we had to crank our windows down. It's like, and hit a button. I was like, oh. It's much easier now.
Yeah. So you were drawing pen and paper, and you were working on The Hateful Eight and these other fantastic movies. And then you had your daughter and you left the workforce.
I did.
And you said goodbye to the wonderful costume design, and you were a stay-at-home mom. How was that to leave the workforce and stay home with your kids?
Right when I left, well, I realized I couldn't be the mother that I wanted to be and give my kids the time that they needed, and being a working mom. It just wasn't. If it was digital then, I may have been able to do it, because I potentially could have done it from home. But in those days, you had to be in the office. You had to be right next to the designer. And it was hard in the beginning because I was worried about losing touch and losing ground, and I think it had a little bit to do with my ego, you know, that I wasn't a professional anymore, that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I had a little bit of panic. And then one designer said to me, you have all the time in the world to work, but your kids are you're only going to raise your kids for this little window of time. So don't worry about it. And after she said that to me, it was like, oh my God, she's so right. And it just hit home. And I thought, that's it. I'm just going to raise my kids, because I had 3 daughters. It wasn't like one, you know, and I was going to like work this out. I had 3 and it was full time. And so, and the mom I wanted to be was the one that was home cooking and making cookies and helping them with their homework. And that's who I wanted to be. So I did that for probably 12 or 13 years.
Wow.
And while I was gone, I wasn't gone, I was there while I was being a mom. I did, like, my creativity didn't stop. I still wanted to be drawing, and I still wanted to be, so what I would do is I would craft with the girls all the time. It would be crazy crafting. And I also tried to start a little business, a home business, where I was making lunch cards for their lunch boxes.
Aww.
And so I do these artistic lunch cards and create lines. And I thought my kids loved them so much. I thought, well, maybe I'll start that business. And I tried, but it's just too much. And that's when I realized, that's the first time I saw Photoshop, because I was doing these illustrations. And then I had to hire someone to put the words on.
Oh.
And that was my first introduction to, what is this Photoshop thing? Oh my God, it's like so hard, because I saw, you know, the person who I hired, I saw them doing it. And I thought, oh my God, that's crazy. That's way beyond. I'll never be able to figure out how to do that. And now it's like just word in Photoshop, words. I'm like, oh. So easy. But so I was creative with the girls the whole time I was gone.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And then you decided to go back to the workforce.
Well,
and things had changed.
Yeah. So I got a divorce, which changed my whole world, and I didn't have any support or help or anything like that. So I had to go back into the workforce. And I thought, well, okay, okay, I can do this. You know, I'll just make all my calls and go back in. And luckily, the Costume Designers Guild is a union that very much supports their members. And so the Costume Designers Guild has costume designers, costume design assistants, and concept artists. So those are the 3 categories in the guild. And so when I let them know I was coming back, I spoke to the president, Sal Perez, and he explained, you know, he talked to me about how to come back and what I needed to do. And first one was volunteer and be social, to be seen. And I did that, and I got hired for this one job. And I had also heard about this whole digital thing.
Yeah.
That was kind of taking over, but not to worry.
That Photoshop thing you saw earlier.
Oh, yeah. But I remember everybody that was a little bit older in the guild was like, don't worry about it. Pen and paper, you know, the paper thing still, you know, you're fine. Like you'll still be able to work. I'm like, okay. And I remember having discussions like, is this real? Like, are we really doing this? Or is this kind of like one of those phases that everybody kind of gets over? And they're like, yeah, you'll be fine. It's probably just a phase.
Yeah.
And so I went to my first job back, and I brought all my stuff, and the designer was fine with it. Of course, she knew exactly she knew what was going on with the industry with digital, you know, wave, but she was okay with me drawing. And so she was fine. And oh God, I was so uncomfortable because I knew something was wrong. I mean, I just knew the whole thing was wrong, that I was a dinosaur. And some people came in and said, "Is that a light box with paper?"
Oh no.
And I said, "Yeah."
Oh no.
And they and they started laughing.
Oh, Gina.
Now they weren't, they weren't laughing at me, but they were laughing. They were still, it wasn't like cruel, but it was one of those moments where I died. I absolutely died. And I'm not mad at them because it changed everything for me. I knew that I had to figure out what this whole digital thing was. And so it was one of those defining moments that I'm really happy it happened. And I then proceeded to contact the concept artists that were working. And through our guild, I knew exactly who they were. And so I contacted them and said who I was, and that I just wanted to talk to them about what this whole thing was. And so what I did was I contacted 4 or 5 of them, and I went, and they were so sweet. Now I'm now in my late 40s, early 50s, and they're in their mid 20s. So when I left the industry, it was all women drawing with paper around my age. And when I came back, it was all digital and young men. So I contacted all of them, and I went and sat with them. I said, "I just need to sit with you and see what you're doing." And so I sat with each of them for about an hour or 2, and they talked to me about their process and what this was all about and the tools that they used. And from there, I was terrifying, absolutely terrifying, and completely, I thought, no, I can't do this. But I have to say, if I had any kind of financial support, if I didn't have to take care of my children, I don't think I could have done it. It was, I think it's what's incredible about us is if we have to do it, we can, whatever it is. If it's like, maybe I'll do it, I don't know, this is uncomfortable, then it's not going to happen. So if I had been able to be like, I'm scared, or I'm uncomfortable, this is hard, I couldn't have done it, because it was like, oh my God, I'm 50. And what is this stuff? You know, it's like huge, like leap. It was a huge leap.
Did you feel isolated in the industry there when you didn't understand the technology?
Not isolated. I just cried a lot. So I don't know quite what that feels. I just remember it was an entire year of crying. So okay, so what I did after I sat with all these guys was I went to every class that I could go to that was digital, right? So, and our guild, again, provided us with free classes for all sorts of different things, education. So I went and I found there was this class on developing characters in Photoshop. And it wasn't the class I needed, but it was a class. And so I met Patrick Rodriguez, who's a previs artist for, he was working for Disney at the time. And I said, this what you're teaching isn't what I need to learn. Can I show you what I need to learn? Like my end product that I have to learn. And would you teach me how to do that? Just that. It's like, I need to learn how to make Thanksgiving dinner. Not to learn, I don't want to learn how to cook. Just teach me how to learn Thanksgiving dinner. That's it. Because Photoshop is like this Pandora's box of like, you can go from here to here 20 different ways, and they're all right. So I just get me from here to here one way. And so I started taking private lessons with Patrick. He said yes. And I'd sit and I'd cry right before my lesson. I'm sitting there crying. He'd just wait. Be like, "Are you done?" "Yeah, I'm done." And after a year, I was working. It
Wow.
just put in the time, and I started working before I was ready, which also was terrifying because I wasn't ready. The first job I went on, I forgot my stylus.
Oh no.
I lived an hour and a half from the job. So
Did
I
they
was
have
like,
one there for you?
no. I'll be like, "I'll be right back." I'm all set up and I have no stylus. So I started working prematurely with digital, and I just somehow, it was like I'd sit down and think, I hope they don't find out that I'm just a fraud. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I made it through each job because I had to. It's like, you have to. I made it through. Somehow I made it through. And boy, now you can't trade. I can't have enough Cintiqs. I love them so much. Love them. I'm so excited. The one thing that frustrates me now is that I'm so busy that I don't have time to learn. I want to like learn more, take more classes, and I don't have time. But one day, I guess I'll get some. You're always behind. Which digital arts, you're always behind.
Yeah.
So I just have to live with the feeling, knowing that I don't know if I'll ever be caught up.
Yeah, I mean, you always have something to kind of keep moving toward. So what's your workspace like now?
Well, during COVID, we're home.
We are home.
Right now we're home. So
do you have a Cintiq at home?
I have a 32, a Pro 32 at home, which also doubles as a bed. It's huge. I love it so much. So when I travel with my 16, it feels like a postage stamp, but the 16's great. But oh my God, my Pro 32 with the flex arm is I love it. I love it. Like I said in another podcast, I've been just a fanatic for collecting. I love jewelry, gold jewelry. But if you said to me, a Cintiq or a big piece of fabulous jewelry, I'd be like, I think a Cintiq. I just love them. But they've made my life great because I can work from anywhere. During COVID, I've been able to work from home. And you can see my home office here, and my daughters are home also, and so they're sitting. I put a little desk in front of mine, so they do their homework with me sometimes, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And but the Cintiq has made me. I've been able to like travel to Europe and take my Cintiq with me, and I work from there. So it's given me an incredible freedom and an ability to take care of my family, to earn no matter where I am. And so I'm just the biggest fan ever. I think I'm Wacom's biggest fan, aren't I? Maybe
you are
one
our
of them,
biggest
right?
fan.
Okay, good.
So you started your career pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
You stepped out of the workforce for more than a decade. You come back, you spend a year learning Photoshop, learning all of the digital tools you need. And now, Gina, you are the costume concept artist for arguably the biggest show on television, The Boys.
And deservedly so. It's a great show. And it's just so well done. So, and I'm so proud. Yes, The Boys. I'm also the concept artist for Titans, Doom Patrol, Stargirl, which is really fun, Black Lightning, and what I'm working on right now is Picard, season 2.
Oh yeah. So you're now at the top of your career.
I can't say it, that's bad luck, right? Do I have to knock on wood if I say yes?
I'll knock on wood for you.
Thank you. I'm happy, and I don't have a moment. I don't have a moment to breathe, and I'm I love drawing, and I just, as long as I'm drawing, I'm happy. So I'm very happy, especially. And I grew up as a reading comic books. My brother turned me on to comic books. He was a huge collector, and so I became a collector. And so now to be able to be working on these kind of projects that are superhero characters, it's just so much fun. It's a dream come true for me.
What's it like watching your costumes, the costumes that have come from your concepts? What is that like to see it just on the TV? You're just watching TV and there it is.
You know, I thought it was going to like blow my mind and be super exciting, but the process is so long that you start getting like, yeah, there it is. Yeah, there, you know, there it is again. There it is. It's like from drawing, it's about it's like 2 or 3 years. So you start getting numb. So I have to say, I wish it was more like, oh, wow, there it is. It's just kind of, it just becomes home. Yeah, there, you know, it's not that big splash. So
do you ever just want to reach through the screen and fix something that you see that was bothering you?
God, no. No, I love the fact that I get to draw it and then I hand it off to the next department, which then they make it a reality, the whole thing a reality, and make all the necessary changes, and they deal with all the problems and all the fitting and all the adjustments and all that kind of thing. I like that I hand it off and then I move on to the next thing. I love my department. If I feel like this is the most fun is my department, but the next department will be like, no, getting all the fabrics and designing the fabrics, that's the most fun. And no, creating all the armor, that's the most fun. It's like, no. So I hand off, and I do love that I don't have to follow it through the whole process. Like the designer, you know, she's right at conception to getting it on set and making sure she's right there when it establishes on set. And I couldn't imagine having that attention span to get it all the way across the board like that.
Yeah. Well, Gina, we were talking before we went live about what a positive person you are, and how you were saying that you live in the moment, or you're saying that you try to be present as much as possible, and
Yes.
that the positivity is really important. So talk a little bit about how, I mean, because it's a hard time, right? You mentioned we're in COVID.
Yes.
We're however many months into COVID now, 6-8 months into COVID. Tell me a little bit about your positivity and how it's helping your work, and maybe some areas that your positivity is getting you through this sort of bigger, tougher time.
To be completely honest, I think I'm really lucky that I was down for 3 months, and then because I'm the first step to the process of costumes, I was able to come back on. I think I started again in May, where the rest of the crew probably started in August. Mm-hmm. So I was on by 4 months before. So I'm really blessed that I was on earlier while everybody else was still waiting and struggling and, you know, dealing with, you know, not having the income they needed, you know, to get through those months. So, but there's so much good in what's happening. And it's easy to stay positive for me because I have my kids doing their homework right across from me, which is super cool. I get to work instead of drive. My drive to work is an hour and a half. So yeah. Up and back. So it's a 3 hours that I'd be on the road, that I'm not on the road anymore. There's all these incredible things that are happening, you know, and I go outside for my walk and I see families together, you know, riding bikes, dads and moms, and everybody's like out with each other. So I see all the really good stuff that's happening, and all the restaurants being outdoors. And I know that has nothing to do with my work, but learning how also to work from home for what I do is an incredible plus. We started doing Zoom and sharing our screens with the designer. And so the fact that we're able to do it from a distance is also incredible for, I think, digital artists, that we could be anywhere, live anywhere, and put full days in. Because that's what this tool does for us, though. I mean, we don't have to be in the office. We can be remote. We can live wherever, we could potentially live wherever we want. And it's a luxury that has come with digital arts that I think none of us have really been able to totally take advantage of, because the norm was you had to go into the office.
Right.
I think all of us are finding out we don't really have to. A lot of us don't really have to be in the office to do a great job and be productive with these tools.
So how are you, I mean, throughout the process, you're doing so many revisions and you're taking in so much input from other people. If you're not in the office, how are you getting kind of those little, not the big meeting bits of feedback, but really, you know, that sort of across the office, quick chat? How are you getting that information?
We start, my teammate is Greg Hopwood, and he's another incredible concept artist, and he and I start a Zoom at 9:30 in the morning, and we invite the designer, and we stay on it all day long.
Oh, wow.
And so she can hop in whenever she wants. And so as we're going, she'll jump in at noon or at 6 p.m. or whenever it works for her and be like, okay, guys, how's it going? And so we share our screens with her and show her where our progress. And we talk about it and make adjustments, and then she hops off. And it's kind of like being in the office. We just started that. We've been back to work a while now, and we just started that though this past month, because we wanted to kind of up our game in terms of communication. We were struggling a little bit before we started the all-day Zoom.
Yeah.
And the all-day Zoom comes with, it's a double-edged sword too, because it's you step away for a second and no one knows where you are because you've turned everything off, and it's okay. But it's been working. It's been totally working. Yeah. And so that's how we're solving that, kind of keeping us on track, the designer making sure we don't go too far off track because we're located somewhere else. But otherwise, before, we were just doing the check-in. She would check in the morning, and then we check in at night, and instead of doing the all day thing.
Yeah, it's almost like you miss the interpersonal bits to it. I think the morning check-in is nice, but you miss that coffee talk, and you miss just that moment, secondy, like little bit that you get to talk to people.
Yes, you do, but it kind of can't happen while we're all wearing masks, staying 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be, we kind of went through it, and there wasn't going to be an ability for her to come in and sit with us, or come in and stand over our Cintiqs. So we were kind of like, well, you can't do it anyway. So how do we want to do this? And just saving the drive time has been so productive.
It's huge, right?
Especially LA, LA traffic.
Yeah. Well, Gina, I think one of the things, and this is where I would love to leave it, is I would love for you to offer advice to people who are either out of the workforce for the moment, right? There's a lot of people who are out of the workforce, and they will get back into it, but offering some thoughts to those people, or the people who are just starting out and who are just beginning their careers in the creative arts. Will you wrap us up from this interview with some words of wisdom?
Take all this time to learn, like ZBrush, especially if you want to be a concept artist, to learn Photoshop, learn ZBrush, learn all these programs. It is completely the future, and you will work if you know them. And so if you have downtime, learn. Don't waste a minute. Yeah, learn. And there's so many ways to learn, you know, online. There's you don't have to pay for any of it either. Pixelogic and all the workshops, all the free workshops online it's lynda.com. There's a plethora of ways to learn digital arts online. Even Wacom has tons of lessons.
Yeah, we do. And we have our weekly podcast too, which you've been a guest. Our weekly webinars.
That's right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I'm just saying, I was going to say, so there's no excuses, but I remember in the beginning, I did have a couple excuses because I should have learned ZBrush while those 3 months, but I didn't, but I've got 3 kids.
And ZBrush is a really hard program. You got to take baby steps with that one.
But it's a big one. It's a big one the interface is rough, but that's one that if you can master, that one's a good one for being able to work.
Oh yeah, you could work in you could work in game design if you have ZBrush. You could work in product design. It's a very important program to a lot of artists.
That and Photoshop, I think, are 2 biggest ones.
Yeah. Well, Gina, I miss you because I normally see you in person and you always give hugs. You always say, I'm a hugging person. I give hugs.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it.
Yes, Comic-Con, it's so sad. We don't get to go to all the conventions.
Yes.
So fun. Hopefully we'll get through this soon and we'll be back on track.
We will, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, Gina. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.